Welcome back to the Stuff About Money They Don't Teach You in School podcast. I'm Erik Garcia, certified financial planner. One of your co-hosts, joined here by Xavier Angel, the co-host. What's up, Javi? Yep, for y'all don't know, that's Xavier's Spanish name, Javi.
Yes, it started with one of Erik's relatives who came in the office and saw Xavier and started calling me Javi.
So you look a little Hispanic too, man. You could be a brother of mine, a Cuban.
Well,
something.
Black, Hispanic, I'm always going to be your brother.
You're my brother, business partner, co-host, brother from a different mother. I want to start off with a poetry reading. Can we start? Is that okay? I know we're going to talk about.
That's okay.
It's about money. It's relevant.
It's good.
It's relevant to our topic. Okay.
Go for it.
All right. Man, somebody messaged me on Instagram saying they don't like to listen to my music because I don't drive a brand new fancy car like a real rapper. Man, I'm trying to be smart with my money. And actually, I'm in love with my car. Plus, I ain't got no car note. You heard me? All right, do you know who the poet is?
Is that D1?
That's D1. He goes on. He says, oh, hold up. Oh, my God. All right. He says, I don't care what they drive. I don't mind how they roll. I don't want what they got. So what if my car old? I love my 98 Honda. Think I'm finna let it go? Nope. Why not? Because I ain't got no car note. Isn't that beautiful?
That is, and I see where that's going.
You see where it's going?
I see where it's going.
Hold on, it's still going. I'm not done. I use all that extra money to take long vacations. No note. I use all that extra money to stack up my savings. No note. Even if you make more than me, I save more than you.
D1, he's a poet.
I was going to rap it, but...
No, we didn't want you to rap it.
No car note. We actually did a whole episode on this. I think episode 4, one of our early episodes. All right.
Right.
So why am I reading D1 about no car note on this episode? David.
So I'm sitting, and I'm going to jump in now, Erik. So I'm sitting down and I'm having a conversation, and meeting with a client. We're talking about financial planning, and we're talking about savings. We're talking about growing net worth, and we're talking about investments. And so as we're sitting down and we're having this conversation on what the individual should be doing, I laid out a plan for her. And this plan was over the next 4 months, what she would need to do to reach her goals. Mm-hmm. And she looks at me and she says, that's going to be hard. And my response is, if it's not hard, then are you going to really accomplish what you want? And she looks at me, she says, what do you mean? And I said, go look out the window and tell me what you see. And she said, okay, she named the 3 cars that she saw out in the parking lot behind the building. And I said, did you see my car? And she said, no, but as a matter of fact, I didn't. Where's your car? And I said, the gray Honda Accord, that gray 2008 Honda Accord is mine.
No note.
No note. And so she looks at me and she's like, well, where's your car? You had a new car. And I said, absolutely, I did. My son graduated a couple of weeks ago. I gave him the car. The car was paid off, transferred the title over to him, gave it to him. He has no note now on a 3.5-year-old car. Mm-hmm. So she says, well, when are you going to get a new car? I said, I'm not. She said, well, why? You could go buy a new car. And my response was, I have a couple goals that I need to accomplish over the next 4 months. Mm-hmm. I need to recoup my savings. I need to recoup what I spent in my checking account over the last 3 weeks. as I was traveling with both my kids and getting them up and running in their new areas and starting their new careers. And she said, but you could still do it. I said, absolutely, I could. However, if I go out and buy a new car today, I will not be able to accomplish the goals that I have. I'm willing to take the pain of driving a 2008 Honda Accord that has over 300,000 miles, that the AC just went out a couple of days ago, and I can sacrifice it.
Is it Sir Mix-a-Lot? Was it Sir Mix-a-Lot? My hoopty rolling tailpipe dragging don't work. My girl.
But Eric, I'll tell you, okay. You say hoopty, but
it's not a hoopty. It looks good.
It's not. It still drives better than a lot of these. Maureen actually prefers to drive in that 2008 Honda Accord than she did in the 2020 Honda Accord that I had.
Yeah, I have a hard time with your wife saying she'd rather ride in that car with no air conditioning when it's 110 degrees outside.
Well,
what if someone were to come to you? What if someone were to come to you and say, Xavier, look, I like everything you're saying. You're a financial advisor. You're not just any financial advisor. You are a certified financial planner. I mean, you hold maybe one of the most dignified certifications in the industry. You've had a lot of success, but dude, I mean, how can I take advice from a dude who's driving a 2008 Honda Accord with no AC in the New Orleans summer? How can I take you seriously?
I have a plan, Eric. I'm not going to be driving that over the next year. My goal is to eventually, I'm thinking late August, early September, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to purchase the car. However, I want to save as much as possible. And with the option to, if I want to go in there and pay, 10, 15,000 and put it down on the car to reduce my monthly note, then I had that option to do that.
All right. So they got all these other, we run with a bunch of financial advisors. We work with attorneys and a lot of CPAs and some of these people and non-professional people. And some of these people drive really, really nice cars.
Right.
You bring your car. I know you brought your car recently to get serviced at the Honda dealership. And there's some really nice Hondas that you're looking at. Like, how do you look at those cars, look at what everyone else is driving and say, I don't care about that?
It's painful. It's painful because, yes, I would love to go out there right now, today, and purchase that brand new Accord or whatever it may be, right? But if I did that, I wouldn't be able to accomplish the goals that I've got on paper between now and September 1.
So it's about priorities.
It is about priorities.
So you are consciously making a decision to delay gratification.
Yes.
Because of something that you have deemed more important than a nice car.
Absolutely. And again, look, my gratification is going to come later. I know where my gratifications are going to come later down the line. I also know the gratification that I've had over the past 3 to 4 weeks. I mean, look, I've been to Chicago and South Bend, Indiana, and DC and Los Angeles, all within the last 4.5 weeks.
That's what D1 says. He said, I use all that extra money to take long vacations.
Yeah, exactly. Now, all of it wasn't vacations, but there's still expenses that are associated with it.
Yeah.
And
so for you, it's a conscious decision to say, you know what? I can go out and buy a new car, but I've got things that I want to accomplish before I do that. So you set a very specific goal as to when that's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So delayed gratification isn't something that comes natural to humans. In fact, we want instant gratification. We want that endorphin rush of kind of feeding our desires right now. So delayed gratification is something that comes. It's a learned behavior. I mean, you even said it's hard.
Right.
It's hard, but it's something that you can learn. So I think this is something that unfortunately a lot of Americans suffer with. This
So, I'm actually teaching Grace about delayed gratification. So Grace was in the office with us yesterday, and we're driving home, and she was complaining. She's like, I just can't do this anymore. I don't want to drive in this car, you know. And I said, well, Grace,
I have a feeling your wife would say the same thing.
yes. So, I said, well, Grace, what are you going to do? And she said, well, if you don't go buy a new car soon, I'm going to have to start Ubering. Now she's 12 years old. And I said, well, Grace, I said, where are you going to get the money to Uber from? I said, you've got to get it from somewhere. I said, all the trips that you've taken, the trip that you're going on this weekend, and I'm giving you money, you like to go out and shop and once in a while go out to eat. I said, I can go buy a car today. And if I go buy a car today, then we're going to have to give up some other things in order for us to be able to replenish and meet the goals that I've set aside for us, for myself and us as a family. And she looks at me and she says, well, what would I have to give up? I said, well, if you want to go to the beach later this year, we'll have to give that up. If we're going to go back to DC in August, then you have to give that up. And so she looks at me and says, okay. So if you have those goals on paper and you know what those goals are, and you weigh the option between the two, and I think it's still hard, but you're going to make that decision of that delayed gratification because in your heart, you know what you need to do to get to that point.
Well, I think so a couple ways I think to kind of learn delayed gratification or learn this behavior is one, set a real specific goal, something that's very tangible. Okay.
Correct.
It doesn't have to be huge, especially starting off. If some of us have a little bit more of the ability to control the impulse of instant gratification. If you don't have that ability to control that impulse, start small, really small steps, and even small time frames. But something that's really important is you keep that vision in front of you. Like, hey, this is going to happen in September, or like you did with your daughter, hey, we can suffer with no air for the summer and go to the beach later, or we can go buy a nice car with air-conditioned seats and not go to the beach. And what it does is it says, oh, you know what? I really want to go to the beach. Man, I'm thankful that I'll have the ability to go to the beach. I'm willing to delay that gratification. So I think this idea of gratitude is important, and being thankful and practicing gratitude for what you currently have is important.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, one of the other things that I've heard, one of the other questions that we get is, I want to retire at age 50. And the response is, what are you doing to get you to that point that you can retire at age 50? Are you saving? And a lot of people say, well, I'm saving a little bit. And I ask, okay, how much are you saving? I have them do the calculations on their own, and they look at those calculations and they're like, I'm probably not going to have enough. And I've responded to them, what are you willing to give up? And they look at you with that blank look. What do you mean? Well, in order to retire at age 50, what are you willing to give up so that you can start saving to get to that point? Because if you're going to continue to live like you're living today and not capable of putting anything away, are you really going to be capable of retiring at age 50? Or do you have to push that further back? So yes, you have to make hard decisions. But if you put your goals down on paper and you know where you stand and you have a specific date for when you want to accomplish that, I think it becomes easier to be able to reach that goal. Still painful, but easier.
Yeah. So two thoughts. First thought is delayed gratification. That is a common thread in people who have the ability to build wealth. They're not satisfying every impulse. spending impulse that they have. Now, the challenge is when, we run with a lot of business owners. A lot of our clients are business owners. They're cash flowing nicely and they have the ability to buy nice things. So we're not saying that don't buy nice things. That's not what we're saying here. On the contrary, if you've worked hard, reward yourself with nice things. What we're saying is there is a process of being intentional about where you're allocating your dollars.
Absolutely.
And what has priority over something else. Some people want to drive nice cars and they want fancy watches and they want to take expensive vacations. And we have to be real careful too when we look at these people. And we call this social indifference. You've heard me talk a lot about the millionaire next door and the household CEO, and a common thread or a common trait of financially successful people are people who are socially indifferent. They're not influenced by what their neighbors or their friends are driving or wearing. Social media has made it challenging for us. We want to have what others have. But here's the thing. We don't know anyone's story. We don't know their story. We don't know their background. We don't know how they got their money, if they have money. We don't know if they're in debt. So it's very hard to say, man, I want what they have. Well, you don't know the cost, the emotional cost maybe, or their, you don't know the cost. So it's really important that you know your values, you know your goals, your vision for your future. And then you start making those decisions that are in alignment with that. You have a very specific goal. You said, I'm not buying a new car until I've accomplished that goal. And I should accomplish that goal by September. And therefore, I'm going to delay this purchase until then because I'll have accomplished that goal. And that's what financial planning is about. It's about making those intentional, purposeful decisions about how we allocate our dollars and prioritizing our dollars.
Absolutely.
So listen to what, this is Sarah Falau. She's the author of Next Million Next Door. This is what she says. She says, clients that focus intently on what others buy and constantly want the latest and greatest in possessions, such as technology or accessories, are less likely to build wealth over time. Social indifference predicts net worth regardless of age, income, or how much wealth one inherits or is given. So those who score high on social indifference, they're uninterested in what others buy or trends in general. She says those have a higher likelihood of building wealth. And I said I wanted to say two things. I think all that what I just said was wrapped up in one. The second thing is here, and I think this is important, an important takeaway for those of us with kids. Even if we have, this is hard. Even if we have the money to buy things that we want and still meet a lot of our goals, I think we have to be really thoughtful and intentional how we do that and the lessons that we're transmitting to our kids.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, and I was going to say you're right. And the conversations that we have with them, I believe that it's building those foundations for them to take forward. In my case, can I get it? Does she know I can get it if I want it? Absolutely. But I think now she's starting to realize that, okay, well, we're sacrificing X, to get Z. But we're eventually going to get it. It's just a short-term sacrifice in order for us to attain it later. Yeah. And by accomplishing what we're setting out to accomplish or accomplishing that goal, we're going to be able to do more in the future because we're going to have it.
Yeah. No doubt. When you sacrifice the instant return of instant gratification, it's typically for the reward of that longer term investment or that longer, that's got the compounding growth effect. When you finally accomplish your goal, man, sometimes the process of suffering, or I use suffering loosely here, but or the trial of denying yourself, once you finally have reached your goal, man, oftentimes it's that much sweeter and that much more fulfilling. And
Right.
again, this back to this idea of if you have kids more often, the lessons that kids learn from us more often are the behaviors that they see in us
Hmm.
rather than lessons that we speak to them.
Right.
So,
And Erik, I'm gonna interrupt you because I want to throw this out because you've mentioned this a lot often, that independence account.
mhm.
So what has afforded me to be able to do the things that we've done over the last 30 days is that independence account. It's that account that when things pop up, because both of my trips up north, my trip out east to DC, those were not planned. Those were trips that popped up, a couple weeks prior to us having to go. Well, because I had that independence account and I had the funds in there, I was able to do it.
Yeah.
You
So for
know,
those of you who might not be familiar with what Xavier's talking about, I like to purpose different accounts. So get your emergency fund, right? For emergencies. And then I got what I call the independence account. Right? It's one of the names I call it. It's the account. It's an investment account that you build up. You don't have any specific purpose for it other than to provide you with independence, right? Like, oh, I need to do this, or I want to do that. Hey, I've got the funds to do that. I don't have to be bound to like debt to borrow to be able to do this. So the more you have in this account, the bigger this account is. And it's typically a taxable investment account. I just like to name things. The more you have in that account, the more freedom, the more independence you have. With some of my business owner clients, we call it the work optional account. Because it's
mhm.
going to give you the option to, and you know what? I don't want to grind it out as hard as I'm doing in my own business. I want to hire someone and I want to work a little bit less, right? So work becomes optional. The bigger this account is, the more options you have. The bigger the account is, the more freedom that you have to take a trip like you just talked about. That's what the
Right.
independence account is. So what I was saying was these behaviors that we're exhibiting, that you are exhibiting for your daughter to watch, that lesson is more powerful, more sticky than the actual words that you're using to teach her. And that's why it's important, I think, that sometimes even when we have means, not that I'm not talking about living in poverty or like, just totally denying yourself of anything nice. I'm talking about being thoughtful and how we make those spending decisions and exhibiting, this is important, exhibiting the behavior with our money that we want our kids to eventually exhibit. Now I say eventually because sometimes they have to learn, but we need to be exhibiting the behavior that we want our kids to be exhibiting at some point in the future as they interact and they relate with their money. So congratulations to you for having that conversation with your daughter and for exhibiting that behavior. I think that's good. And honestly, dude, you're an example for me and an inspiration to me. So I appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you. All right.
Xavier, thanks for dropping that wisdom today. And thank you all for suffering through my poetry reading. Very beautiful. Very beautiful. Actually, I think this topic here to me is a super important topic for people to learn, this idea of delayed gratification as we build wealth. So thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, go ahead, share this with someone, follow us wherever you listen to your podcast apps, and happy wealth building, y'all.